We couldn't wait. It's too exciting. Welcome back, one and all, to another great live stream, Trotec Laser Live. We're so glad to have you all with us. I'm joined today by two very distinguished gentlemen that I will introduce in just a moment. My name is Don. Obviously, if you've seen any of these webinars before, you've probably seen me before. I want to say once again, a big thanks for everybody who joins us now, or if you're watching this in the future. We really, really appreciate it. It's great to have you with us. If you are watching live, don't hesitate to throw any questions you might have in the chat. We've got some very, very knowledgeable guys with us here today who can definitely answer your questions, and I am also here. Joining me to my camera right, I don't know, it always confuses me. I've got the very, very talented Ron joining us from Plymouth. How are you, sir?
Good, sir. How are you?
Very well. Thank you for asking. I mentioned you're joining us out of Plymouth. This is one of the very first times. I mean, recently we've gotten a lot more opportunity to collab with our North American team as a whole, and it's been really, really great. Do you want to tell people a little bit about what you do at Trotec, how long you've been with the company, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so I've been with Trotec since so about 7.5 years. February 2016, I think, is when I started. I started as a technician, worked as a technician for 2.5 years or so, transitioned into the large format systems as a specialist for those about the when they first were introduced, which was about a year for me with the company. And I installed every single one of them in the United States for a couple of years. With help with, sales teams, and so forth, and did all the prep work, kind of getting customers prepared for them, making sure their electrical was set up, everything that was required for those systems, making sure that they were ready to go when we got there to put the machine together. Transitioned into application testing. I started application testing specifically on those. And then I actually moved into where I'm now doing all apps testing for the United States for customer application testing. So my role here now is customers is interested in a machine or a prospect of, can it be done? Can I do this with a laser? And they send it to me, and I'll find out for you if we can do it.
I should say Ron is very humble, but I know that we've thrown him some real challenges and some real mysteries to solve in the past. So, I mean, there's no doubt about it. He says that he had help from the sales team, these guys in the past, but what I've always been told is that Ron is the expert. Ron is the master. You're in good hands today, everyone. Also joining us, the very distinguished, I think, Mel, you've been on quite a few of our webinars before, particularly some of the Laser Jams in the early days. Mel, do you want to introduce yourself for anybody this is their first time getting to meet you?
Yeah, sure. I've been with Trotec since 2004, but that was a previous company before we got acquired. Been selling all kinds of large format equipment like CNC, plasma, water jet, and laser for about 32 years now. So been around. That makes me really old, but by no means I'm an expert. The expert is right there, up there, Ron. Probably by far has got the more hands-on time on the laser machine. Like, I'm just pretty much here to answer any business-related questions. Pretty much if there's anyone who wants to place an order, I'm your guy.
100%. I should say Mel is our sales director in Canada, and is kind of really spearheading this push on the large format machines. So we're lucky to have him with us today. He, again, very humble, but he knows a lot more than he lets on. So as Ron and Mel were kind of alluding to, today we're going to be talking a lot about our large format systems specifically. We're going to take a few minutes here just to kind of let you know, sort of, if this is your first time ever getting to see one of our SP systems, sort of what separates it from some of the speedy systems you might have gotten to see in the past. And hopefully, we can get into the nitty gritty here and there. Again, if you've got any questions, we'd invite you to toss them in the chat. But the big thing I think today is we hope to convince you either to come down to your local Trotec and check out an SP machine, or if by any chance you're going to be in the Atlanta, Georgia area next month, I believe it's October 18th, 19th, and 20th. As you can see on the little banner there at the bottom of the screen, we're going to be bringing that machine right behind Ron to Printing United. And we'd be really excited to have you out there. Not only could you have a demo, but we've also got all sorts of great show specials and things that are going to be going on specifically at Printing United. So it's really worth your time to come out, meet the team. You can see that machine, and I imagine quite a few others. I imagine we'll have a variety of different machines there at the booth.
Yeah, we will. We're going to have Speedy 400, Speedy 360, SP500, which is over that shoulder there.
Yeah.
We'll even have a speed marker there. So we'll have quite a few. I'll be there as well. So,
Yeah, so am I. Like both
Yeah.
Rowan and I and
Yeah.
a bunch of other
Sold.
salespeople will be
Yep.
there.
Yeah.
Sold.
Yeah.
No, we definitely encourage you to come out. Printing United is a great show. I've never gotten to go myself. I was hoping to get to go this year. We have another event I've got to attend, but unfortunately, I've only ever heard good things. If you're again in the Atlanta area, really encourage you to check it out. I can't say what admission might be or what the situation will be. I imagine tickets will be very popular, but if you get the chance, we really encourage you to come out and check us out. Booth C1932, as you can see there at the bottom of your screen.
Mm-hmm.
So, if it's all right, let's kind of kick things off. Let's get going. We've given people a few minutes to file in. I'm sure more will be coming in as we go. I kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier, but Ron, would you be able to tell us a little bit about, in your estimation, what separates those machines from the SP machines, as is to say, the large format machines? What separates them from, the standard speedies that people might have a little bit more experience with?
Well, I think the elephant in the room, the obvious thing is going to be the size. It is
Right.
It is quite large. There are other large format systems out there, but there's none like this. This is going to be class 2, laser safety class 2, just like the rest of our laser systems that you're going to see, or at least majority of them. It's and as you'll see in this video here, how that's being achieved is we're actually putting that head right down close to the material. And with a safety disc on there, there's also protections all around the axis to prevent you from, inadvertently interrupting the system or, getting yourself injured or anything like that. And it's very safe to work with. So there's no stray beams or anything. You can put this in the middle of your showroom with customers walking around it and everything else, if that's what you want, and it'll run and it's perfectly safe. And there's no need for barriers or safety glasses or anything like that. So that's really awesome. It's also going to be a much higher powered system. So typically in a smaller flatbed like a Speedy, we're maxing out about 120 watts, which in a smaller system like that can be quite a bit. Here, we're going up to 400 watts of CO2 laser power. So you're going to be able to cut really thick material, 1-inch acrylic. And actually, it's one of the things this thing was built for, was cutting very thick acrylic. And other materials, woods and so forth, that are also very thick. But then the other nice thing is, because this gantry style laser, one of the things that kind of steps it out compared to the other large format open systems it competes with, you don't see a laser tube on that axis. You don't see anything that looks cumbersome or anything like that. And this machine's able to actually move around and accelerate quite fast. So even on thin material like what we cut here, this is on a 200 watt you see in this video. It's able to cut that very quickly. The 400 watt is nearly twice as fast as the 200 watt that you see in that video doing the same application. So,
well, and you kind of touched off on there. You were speaking to the materials that you typically maybe see somebody come in to work with on that machine. I'm curious, as an extension of that, what are oftentimes the applications you'd be looking at? What are the types of because look, I'll level with you. Most people I think who work at Trotec would like to have a Trotec in their home, or at least a lot of the people that I work with said if they could have one in their garage, we'd have one. But I think most of us would probably, let's say, have a 360 or a 400. But you're exactly right. Anytime somebody walks in and sees that big, beautiful 2000 sitting there, it's an eye catcher. It's a showstopper.
Oh, yeah, we can't bring somebody into the showroom without somebody asking a question about that. So,
100%. Well, and so this is it. So I guess I'm wondering, leaving aside the coolness factor, who are those people where if they come in and they've got a particular application, what are those applications that you would say, hey, you really need to go over and see this 2000 if you haven't yet?
Yeah, for sure. You're talking about customers that are signage industry, obviously, which Printing United is big in the signage industry. But that's one of the big things we always point out. Customers come in there, they want to just do some big characters, they cut out some stuff or whatever. That machine can do all that and more. But one of the nice things too is that a lot of these times these customers are dealing with large sheet material, and maybe they have to take it to a router to cut it down to a size that they can put into their smaller laser. Just put the sheet on this. It'll cut the whole thing for you. It has a camera on it, just the same as the smaller systems. It'll do your print and cut. It'll do all of that. And it's glorious for that. And it really stands out. And then, we also get into like textile industry with that kind of stuff as well with this machine. You could have a roll of material come right off the back, pull it across the bed and cut that roll of material. So,
So want to kind of stop on that really quick here, and then I had a question for Mel as well, but I want to stop on that really quick. You mentioned, in the video we saw you were cutting kind of some thinner acrylic. Clearly, I mean, with 400 watts, you could get through some really thick stuff, but there's no diminishing returns, even if you're using something like textiles, right? I mean, even if you're using a super thin material, you're still getting that same quality and speed that you'd see in the thicker stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. Depending on your application. I'm sorry, you're asking Mel a question, weren't you?
No, that's fine.
No.
I gotta say, well, the beauty about these laser machines, they're highly customizable, right?
Yeah.
You can pretty much custom, you build the machine based on your requirement. Well, the biggest advantage of having a more powerful laser is you can always dial down, right? So I've seen so complex application, from a single company cutting from a thick acrylic all the way down to paper and even fabric or Kevlar or anything, for that matter. And there's a lot of time saving like features using a laser. There's no post processing. You don't have to flame polish anything. The finished product right off the machine.
True. A great question there. Also, kind of on the subject that we're talking about from Grid Photo in the chat. I'll throw this over to you, Ron, asking about what are the thickest materials that this machine can cut at. They mentioned doing some 1/2-inch cast acrylic, but you were saying even maybe up to 1 inch or more potentially.
That's correct. Yeah. So we've, I could tell you in the past with application testing, I've put 2-inch material on this machine and cut it with a 400 watt. I'm not saying I encourage you to cut. In this case, the one I always reference is I had a customer come in with a piece of 2-inch thick teak wood, which, if you know, teak is about one of the densest woods there is. And we were able to successfully cut it just cut a corner off of it to show them that it could be done. It was done. I'm not saying I would ever suggest actually doing that in production, but it can happen. But realistically in production though, 1-inch material on a 400 watt tube all day long. There's some exceptions to that when you get into certain things. Plywood can be kind of finicky. Plywood, you're dealing with glues and stuff that burn, and you may not want to go quite so thick, or maybe just be careful and more selective of the plywood that you're using. But 1-inch material all day long, and I would argue that in some cases you could push it to 1.25 inches. You can actually fit 2 inches of material, actually 1.97 inches of material between the head and the table. So
that is very specific. To anyone who wants to bring their materials to Printing United, just a little note there: under 1.97, please.
Yeah. And Don, one thing that we've implemented, we made it mandatory for like large format machines. That the testing is mandatory, like in one of our application labs. Regardless of how common your application is, we still want to see your material. We still want to cut and make a sample piece for you. So there's no guesswork. Like you're getting the performance results that you are expecting, and then what we can provide as well.
Right. That's fair. I just want to take a quick moment here also to shout out. I noticed that Johnny from our UK branch has joined us in the chat. Johnny, just want to say a big hello to you and thank you for being here. And Johnny mentions it, but also just to throw that out there that they are doing a large format open house, doors open days in the UK. And that's going to be next week, I believe, on the 3rd to the 5th. So if you're in the UK and you're joining us from the UK, number one, thank you for, I don't know what time it is there. It doesn't appear to be too late, but even still, appreciate it. But regardless, I hope you can make it out to their doors open next week. Johnny and the whole team out there are fantastic. They're wonderful. Quick question in the chat from AML, who's asking, Ron, you mentioned about how we can do print and cut on this machine, but would you be able to talk a little bit about OptiMotion and maybe, how it affects the large format machines in particular?
Absolutely, yeah. So OptiMotion was actually introduced with Trotec on the SP2000, SP3000. It's now something that we have in majority of our flatbed product line now. And what it is, it's basically taking our new electronics, which are now using Ethernet communication throughout. So it's high-speed communication between all the electronic boards that control all the different axes. And with that, they're able to communicate much faster and change. And so using that technology, we can change direction much faster and maintain a very high level of accuracy while achieving very fast acceleration for the system. So in regards to like the SP2000, SP3000, we're doing 1G acceleration with the OptiMotion turned on, set to a throughput mode. 1G acceleration, changing direction and going to the next thing and so forth, which greatly reduces the overall production time of a job on that laser compared to what it could be without that technology. Because, high speeds and, talking big numbers all sounds good, but without the acceleration, it's kind of meaningless. The acceleration is as important, if not more important, than the total top speed that the laser can achieve.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, James made a really interesting analogy about the OptiMotion. It's just like driving a NASCAR.
Yeah.
Right? You got
I
a
was hoping you
navigator.
were going to
So
mention
someone's
this.
telling you, hey, there's a sharp curve,
Mhm.
a few meters down. So it's telling you basically to slow down a little bit, so that gives you a perfect turn, right? So I like that analogy.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, and I think it leads into this second question from Grid Photo too, where they ask if the machine is able to engrave, because I think it talks a little bit to, where one of the unique properties of the 2000 is, I mean, to your point, Ron, the acceleration has to be there, but also, as you can see in the videos and also just in looking at the machine behind Ron, they're like, you're talking about a big, heavy gantry that has to move, quite quickly. So, if somebody was looking to engrave, is this sort of the machine you'd steer them towards, or would there be maybe a mixed solution? What would be your suggestion?
So I would normally point them towards a mixed solution. It can engrave, absolutely. And if you're doing small engravings, like you need to put a little logo in the corner of a part you cut or something like that, absolutely, yeah, just fine. It'll look good. It'll work just fine. What you're going to notice is that with this machine, if if you came to a showroom or whatever and asked us to show you what that looks like, it's not a showpiece. It's really designed as a cutting system. It can etch. But it's really designed as a cutting system. What we often do in those cases where a client is interested in doing some engraving production as well as cutting is we encourage them to maybe consider getting a dual system setup. So you have the 2000, you can cut your large sheet material, you can cut it down to size, you can cut all your parts out of it, whatever it is, and then take those smaller pieces over to a smaller laser, which will engrave at very, very fast speeds. So like our Speedy 400, for instance, which I'm sure we've talked about many, many times, 170 inches per second engraving with 5G acceleration is in the 400 because of that same OptiMotion that we just talked about. Whereas the 2000, on the other hand, it's a big head, big gantry. It's when you're trying to engrave, it's oscillating left and right, and it's just, it's going to slow down a little bit. It's not going to be quite as fast as you probably hope. So big engraving jobs, we tend to, encourage, let's do maybe a dual system setup.
Right. And that makes sense. I appreciate, we've got a great production team here in the back end who's helping us out with Corey and Gabe. A big thank you to them if I haven't already said so, but we're going to get to see a little bit of cutting here. I will say, I'm not sure we actually got to speak to it specifically yet, but what is the exact bed size of this machine in particular? Do we know what the kind of inch by inch breakdown of it is?
Yeah, it's 98 inches long and 66 inches wide. And if you go with the bigger sibling, the SP2000, now you're going up to a 7-foot wide by 10-foot long bed.
Gotcha. Okay. So conceivably, though, I mean, at 66 inches, a lot of those pieces that would be coming off there may actually fit directly into the 400, as you're saying, that has that 40-inch bed width that you could, then use it as kind of an adjoint, more engraving side of the business, like you say.
Absolutely.
I love this video. This is such a great. This
Yeah,
fish is so good.
I've got that hanging up on the wall over there, actually.
I have to say, it is. If you guys have never had the chance, again, we really encourage you, if you get the chance, if you're in the Atlanta area, visit us next month at Printing United. But also at some time in the future, if you're more from the Plymouth or Detroit or Michigan kind of area, to get a chance to come out and see Ron in his natural habitat in his showroom there. They have a beautiful, beautiful facility. I recently got the chance to visit, and it's really, really gorgeous. So I will say, Mel, you sort of mentioned in the beginning when we were chatting about how, you were coming at it maybe more from the business side. I'm curious to know, from your experience, because we're talking about doing mixed systems, we're talking about, maybe getting a combination of lasers, or talking about, how one laser can fit application, all these different things, from a business side, how do you look at, making the investment in a big machine like that? I mean, what is the sort of calculation? We won't necessarily get into ROI today. Obviously, that's a whole conversation unto itself. But again, same sort of similar question to what I asked Ron earlier. What would be the businesses where if they came to you, you might say, hey, you've really got to take a look at these SP systems. They might be something that fits you, kind of perfectly.
Yeah. So most of the people who approach us, they already have a business plan in place. More so, actually, I would say about 90% of the people who approach us owns a large format, either CNC or a water jet machine. They just need something to complement the existing business, right? And there are also businesses that approaches us like starting from zero, and that's where we shine the most because we're not your typical equipment company. Here's the machine, here's how you operate it. We actually
Right.
provide a lot of training from like running the machine, running the business, how you price out your job. So the training is nonstop. Actually, we're more of I know it sounds cliche, but we're more of a partner than a business than a machine solution provider, right? So I would, as far as combination of machines, uh, Ron is bang on. Like usually, you'll see a shops that has an SP2000 that already have multiple like speedies. They got a 400, 360. Now they're expanding to more, bigger and better applications. For me, actually using this machine yields the best profit actually for any business because now you're
Mhm.
getting into a low volume production, but the most profit you can generate out of it, right? To me, that's the best way to go about like building your business.
Right.
And like there's a lot of smaller machines out there. I see there's so many people starting up with like a little machines, right? Like the Rage at 50, the Speedy 100s. To me, as far as I'm concerned, that's still a job. Once you get into the large format, starting from the 500 all the way to 3,000, now that's a business. You
Right.
get
Right. Right.
experience there. So really depends on how aggressive people want to. And obviously, there's also the question of financing, which again, we do a lot of assistance in terms of how do we finance these equipments as well.
Sure. Well, and I think that's a point worth, looking at, which is to say that, we do kind of, again, from that sort of more of a partner than just a provider sort of a standpoint, we do offer financing and all those sorts of different, depending on where your business is at, we have a lot of flexibility in terms of, we're most interested in seeing our lasers in your hands. We love messing around with them, but trust me, we're spoiled. As you can see in the the background there with Ron, we've got plenty of lasers to fool around with. If you have space for this
And
2000.
not to mention, Ron's probably did a lot of installs. Or like Ron, how often you would go to a shop? They have
Yeah.
multiple 400s in there.
Yeah,
This
absolutely. Yeah.
one recently, I'm not gonna name companies, but somewhere in Hawaii, it's got 4 Speedy 400s.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
we're delivering actually an SP2000 like very soon.
hmm
And application
Just
wise, it's enormous. Like we sold this SP2000 to a plastic surgeon. Don't ask me what they do with it, but it just blows my mind.
I will ask, did you say in Hawaii we had to do that install?
Yeah. It's coming up.
They
Do you
cannot
need any help?
I actually regret that I don't get to go, but
Yeah.
And then, Ron, I think these guys are building surfboards.
they're doing like a lot of custom personalization. We
Yeah.
do have a customer actually in northern Michigan here that does stand-up paddle boards.
I think we can
Um,
we can show up the video for that
mhm.
one. Yeah, I watched that video over and over. It was just mind blowing what
Yeah.
these people do with the machine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
With the paddle boards, I mean.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
That
that's
is
their product is very
super
very
easy to
awesome.
get
It's a
designs.
very cool application. That was a fun install too. That was when I was training my replacement to do all the installs on them. That was his first 3,000, and my last 3,000. So, yeah.
Well, so really quickly, then you make a good point there, Ron. I mean, you sort of touched on it quickly earlier, but apart from size, is there any really big difference between the 2000 and the 3000? If I'm
Uh,
interested in looking.
really, it is. That's exactly it. It is the size. It's same
Okay.
electronics, same motors. The big differences aside from the size is you do get a couple of things in addition on the 3000. Really, it's just so we can actually isolate the exhaust on a 2000 front and back, so we can close off the rear exhaust. It's actually crucial for tandem operation, which I can get into in a little bit. With the 3000, we actually can isolate exhaust in quadrants. So we can just have, say, the front left table exhaust open and the rest of the exhaust completely closed off. So it can only be open where you're working, where you're actually cutting.
Cool. I mean, you can feel free to get into it now. I mean, you were talking a little bit earlier about how the table exhaust makes the 2000 special. Do you want to kind of give us an overview of a little bit of just in general terms what that looks like and how that works?
Yeah. So you got a couple of, there's valves underneath the table that you're pulling exhaust from a central location. The exhaust is something that is in addition to the system. So we offer a unit for it, or you can supply your own, and we have recommendations for which ones you can go with. But under the table, you're going to have two valves. They're pneumatically controlled, so you just open up which one you want to open. It's all controlled from the control console, which is where your operator would be standing. That's just kind of the basics of it. Getting into tandem, when you put the system into tandem operation, and this is actually really cool because it allows you're essentially splitting the system into two different beds. You're basically treating the system almost as if it's two completely separate lasers. You're running and cutting and doing things on one side of the system. And while you're doing that, it allows you to actually go to the back of the system and, turn off the exhaust in the rear, take off the parts you just cut, put fresh material down, get it all set up, push one button. It tells the system that you're ready for it. And as soon as it finishes cutting on the other end, it comes over and starts cutting where you just changed out the material. If for some reason you're not done with that, or you haven't done it yet, or whatever the case may be, it'll just go to the middle and park and wait for you to tell it that you're ready, which is a great way to keep the system operating constantly. So that you have almost no downtime from the laser. You can easily change out material without interrupting it. You're cutting off the exhaust in the back, so it still has that exhaust pull at the front where you need it, or vice versa, depending on what side you're changing material on. Very, very awesome setup.
Yeah, and this is fully automated too, Don. Right? Normally, in some technologies, you have to do this manually. There's a big valve that you have to turn on and off, like a CNC machine, right? This one is a push of a button, and then it shuts down half, and you operate. So it's a huge time saving, for high production, high volume production.
Yeah,
100%. Would you say it's more frequent? I'll throw this question to you, Mel, and then maybe even back up to Ram. But would you say it's more frequent than in terms of application that customers are using kind of half, or in the case of the 3000, maybe even a quarter of the bed at a time, as opposed to the whole thing? You're cutting on one side while you're unloading one side, and then swapping back and forth, or
yeah, you can utilize it both any ways you want. That's why if you can see behind you, like Ron's got this rubber mat that that's on the tabletop that you can actually fold and open and close. So not only are you splitting the work area, but you're actually increasing the suction capacity of the machine, right? Obviously, smaller holes, like better suction, right? For your hold down.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So a similar question over to you, Ron, from the chat here. AML was asking about the differences then between the 1500 and the 2000. So kind of going in the opposite direction, what makes the slightly smaller machine different?
Yeah, absolutely. So the 1500 is going to be approximately a 4x4 system. It is enclosed, so you have lids. It's actually very similar to the SP500 that's over my right shoulder. But basically, essentially, take two 500s, put them back to back, make it one bed, one axis. There's your 1500, more or less. That's a very simplified version of it. The 1500 is an older design for us, and it is one that we've sold several of over many, many years. The 2000's newer. So the 2000 is kind of, we tend to point people more towards that. However, the 1500 is still a viable system. You're going to not get things like OptiMotion in the 1500. It's still utilizing the older electronics, and things like the focusing, for instance, is manual on the 1500. It's automated. You have a powered Z, and it's programmable and everything on the 2000. Older system, older design, a bit more like the lasers from, maybe about 7-8 years ago, and kind of how it was put together. And the 2000's much newer, much more advanced, much more capable, but both are viable solutions depending on the needs of what you need to do.
Right. Okay. I have that video here, Mel. If you'd like me to share it, I could.
Yeah,
The one.
please.
The
Really
see
love
if,
that video.
absolutely. So I can pop this up here.
Maybe Ron can give us some background. Like I
Narrative.
know he did the install on this.
See if we can. I don't know if we can pop that into the.
Come on, Don.
Hey,
Look,
there.
I have so much control. There we go.
Yeah. So I don't know if we're gonna get sound with it or not, but
Wow.
yeah, Little Bay Boards. They're up in Petoskey, Michigan. So that's the northern. If you're familiar with Michigan and its layout, I'll pull out my glove, my map. They're actually at the top, right up here of the Lower Peninsula, just south of the Mackinac Bridge. If you're familiar again with Michigan kind of geography, so to speak. But yeah, they started a business with doing stand-up paddle boards. They actually came to us as they had a bad experience with a laser from a competitor. And again, I'm not going to point out, and I'm not going to badmouth anybody, but they had a bad experience with them, and they were really looking for another solution. And they came to us, and we showed them what we could do, and they were very, very, very impressed. And bought a 3000, direct ship to them, and we came out and installed it. It was a typical installation for one of these systems. Probably good to get into that a little bit. You talk about 4 to 5 days, depending on if it's a 2000 or a 3000. And by that, it's a 2-day to 3-day install, setup, calibration, and then we're going to spend 2 days with you training and supervised operation and making sure that you're very comfortable with the system and the software before we leave you to it. So, and actually even there, we're not entirely leaving you to it. We're always available to come back out and do more training or help you over the phone or whatever we got to do to make sure that you're in good hands and you're able to be successful with that system.
And we
Definitely.
usually do on-site visits too, like a couple of on-sites. One is preliminary visit, seeing if you have the right floor space for it, you got the right ambient temperature, where we're going to put the exhaust system. So it's a lot of hand-holding. I could have said, we go all the way in supporting the people before they even receive the equipment.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Lots of preliminary site visits to the customers in Hawaii and
yeah, you have to, right?
Well, when it's Hawaii, we go there a couple more times.
You do some luau while you're doing the install.
You got to deal with there's a lot of special circumstances.
Why I've never been invited on one of these.
Yeah, me neither. I'm so glad you mentioned it. I need to send some emails. I will say, so Ron, you mentioned about, obviously we won't name any other customers, anything like that. It's not important, or any other part of me, any competitor machines. It's not important. But Mel, you mentioned earlier that, in a past life, you'd spent some time selling, CNC machines, plasma, some of the other big format cutters. What would you say, separates laser from some of those other big cutters? I mean, why would you maybe look at a large format machine versus a large format CNC?
Well, basically, the laser it complements almost any other machines out there. That's why you see people. We have this equipment now. The next best thing, so we can diversify, is a laser machine. A lot of putting aside the cost savings on the operational costs. Not to mention, there's actually it's not as loud. You don't have any consumables with the laser except perhaps your electricity. Right, so there's no tool that needs to be resharpened. You're not using any bit. You're not using any aggregates, same as the water jet or plasma machines. Again, these are super quiet. You don't even know you have a laser machine that's operating in the background. Super safe, right? So yeah, no, it definitely complements. I wouldn't say there's some applications that are better cut on different technology, obviously, right? But one thing for sure, you can diversify into more different applications using this machine. God knows I've seen so many different people approach you for a certain application. They just want to cut acrylic. Acrylic is probably by far one of the most common application when they buy the lasers. And then you go back after a while, they're actually engraving shower doors, glass window panels. I've seen people that are actually doing those striation at the back of a plasma screen. have customers that are putting like those tile patterns on certain materials to mimic a the tiles, like the bathroom
Mm.
tiles and whatnot, right? So I'm pretty sure Ron have seen so many different applications as well, and some of them we can't even disclose.
Yeah.
We've
Yeah.
signed a non-disclosure.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And sometimes I get fuzzy on which ones those were. So I was like, maybe I'll just be careful not to talk about the really special.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the special ones you can, right? So
Yeah.
but
You see
again, it complements a lot of different technologies. Definitely highly diversifiable because we've discussed like you can engrave with this machine might not be photorealistic images, but enough basically to be good at application that is really super expensive if you use other technologies.
Well, let me ask you guys kind of a follow-up question then. Setting aside the question of application, is a customer always best served to just go for the biggest laser they can afford? I mean, like obviously we love the SP machines, but if money wasn't an object, would you always go for those bigger machines, or would you say there are certain areas where you might be better served with a slightly smaller, say a Speedy versus an SP or something like this? Is it always a question of just size, or is that question of what application you're going to be doing really, really important?
The quick answer is no. As much as I want to sell all the SP, I'll be lying if I say yes. You have to go for the biggest
Right.
laser.
Okay, fair.
No, really. That's why this is more like it's not a sales process for us. It's more like consultation. We like to talking to people, and a lot of times I urge our sales rep to visit, like the customer on site, see their because more often than not we see the main application that they want to do, and then we identify different different, what do you call this, things that are in their production area that they can utilize the laser.
Mm.
So it's more of, okay, this is your problem. We're all about answering people's pain, right? Why did you come see us? And this is the solution for it.
Optimization
Like,
sometimes
absolutely 100%. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Great question here too. I'll throw over to you, Ron, from chat from Laser Guy. Thank you, Laser Guy, for joining. So does external equipment, so things like exhaust or chiller, stuff like that, change for each SP machine, or are they pretty much standard across the board for all sizes?
It's actually based on wattage, and I guess it's based on the machine too. So your 2000, your 3000 prime are basically going to be the same wattage to wattage. So a 200 watts going to have the same equipment where it comes with a chiller, it comes with and so forth. But exhaust requirements for the two systems is the same. When it comes down to something like a 1500, you can probably get a little bit smaller exhaust and be okay with that system. Not smaller than what it's designed for, but smaller than a 2000, 3000. And then a 500, for instance, a little bit smaller still, smaller bed. That's a 49 by 28 inch bed. So you don't need as much exhaust as you would need for an SP2000. But again, a 200 watt 500 has the same chiller as a 200 watt SP2000, same laser tube. And so forth. A 400 watt 1500 and 2000, same laser tube, same chiller. So that kind of stuff. And then also that's something that we work with you with as well when we're discussing purchasing a system and so forth, is we make sure that what are the power requirements going to be, what kind of exhaust are you going to need, and what would we recommend for you for exhaust. And that's actually it's just as important what system you're getting as where we're putting it, because the distance of the exhaust run can play a heavy part in how big of an exhaust blower you actually need to properly exhaust that system from your facility. So,
well, let me ask you about that really quickly then, if you don't mind. Sorry, Mel, I don't mean to interrupt you. I was just going to ask, do you need a question to you, Ron, really quickly, just to follow up on what you were saying. So you can see, behind you there, the SP2000, it's not hooked into a ton of other equipment. It's got its big gantry arm, which looks intimidating, but it's mostly just the machine and the ventilation system that's hooked up to it. Does that mean that, given you have the vertical height, that you can kind of put it anywhere? Like it doesn't need to be installed necessarily in like I know obviously, let's say a basement, the guy showing up for the install is going to go like, oh my God, please no. But like at the same time, if you have that space to accommodate the machine, this doesn't need to be in a specific production environment. You can put this kind of anywhere, right? As long as you have the footage.
Yeah, we've put them. I mean, we've put them in warehouses. We've put them in. Carpeted rooms with drywall and heat and air conditioning, and desks and cubicles. Just 10 feet away from it, and we've put them in a variety of different installations. The boom that you see there, that's got the black hose coming out of it, that's about 9 feet up. However, you're not required to use that. The only thing we need to make sure is that we can get you head exhaust, and that we can mount the light that's on that boom somewhere where it's visible all right around it. That's part of it, the safety mechanism for the system. So we can actually remove it from the boom and actually mount it to your ceiling or to your wall or whatever the case may be, if it's necessary. We've done that a few times actually. So we could put it in a variety of places. The biggest restrictions are just going to be the space to get it into that space, so how big of an opening, and there's been a few customers that have not been against cutting a hole in the wall to get it in there. So it was cheaper for them to do that than some other options. So that's what happened. You do what you got to do. But
Hey,
yeah, if you got an 8-foot opening, we can get it in there. So sometimes we can even trim it down a little bit if we have to. So a 3000, for instance, we actually don't even need an 8-foot opening. We can get it through because the 3000 has to be assembled on site. So 3000, majority of the crates that are coming in are only about 4 foot wide. So as long as you got a 4-foot opening, we can get it in there.
Wow.
So
okay. Well, and again, just a quick aside, haven't gotten to mention it in a little while, but again, if you guys would like to see the machine in person, you get little banners at the bottom of the screen. Don't miss us next month, Printing United, October 18th, 19th, 20th, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, that's right.
We also have we also sent out an invitation, so if they want to RSVP, so at least they get a spot. And we also, I think we're also holding some workshops and seminars there.
Okay.
We can also put that schedule on the screen, the advantage of that, right?
Well, and again, I encourage you, even if you're coming to Printing United, you could also reach out to your local Trotec. We've always got, there we go. Perfect. Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. Yeah. So the daily schedule of the booth visits, or the booth events, pardon me, from 11 to 11:30, as you can see there, the large format applications, why it pays to go big. Man, that's a great title. 1 to 1:30 is the camera assisted smart technologies. And then 2 to 2:30, as you can see, is how to create the perfectly polished acrylic edges in a single process. Mel, you actually mentioned this, but I'd like to come back to that. You only got to kind of touch on it very quickly earlier, but I'd like to come back to that. You mentioned about how this machine, when it cuts, can create edges or finished products with no post-processing. Can you kind of maybe describe in a little bit more detail what you mean by that?
Yeah, like acrylic, for instance, right? When you cut that with a CNC machine, you're going to have a frosted look on the sides, right? So with this machine, you're automatically cutting and plane polishing at the same time. Right. So for some fabric, they really like the way the laser cut because it seals the edges.
So you don't get fraying and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a lot easier for them to stitch it. There's no extra thread coming out of the fabric. So just, there's so many different ways. Actually, you can custom the setting of the machine that there's absolutely no burn marks on the material. Like for wood, for instance, right? If I get the setting right between speed, power, and frequency, there's no burn marks on the wood, on the acrylic. And Ron could probably give you more information on that as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. When we say we can get the settings perfectly, what we mean is if Ron could help us get the settings perfectly,
it, right?
then yes.
I don't usually get it. So
me neither, not in a million years. Quick question then from Grid Photo, and I'll throw this over to you, Ron, because it kind of you touched on it earlier, and I think you explained it really well. So this machine can technically engrave, but it's just not as fast as the mixed use, or let's say kind of the speedy machines. Is the quality of the engraving the same as the speedies, just from the quality standpoint?
Yeah. So there's going to be. I'm going to start it off by saying it depends. Majority of the stuff that you're going to engrave, yes. So anything that's not terribly small. I mean, if you're trying to engrave 6-point font, you're probably better suited taking it to a smaller machine. Where it's a very, very powerful system. There is lower powered variants, but most customers are not buying this machine for a lower powered variant. They're buying it because they need the power. They want to cut fast and thick and so forth. So, trying to take a 400-watt tube and make it engrave tiny little things sometimes can be a little bit strenuous, but it can be done. But when you're engraving, you can do a little bit of photo engraving to a degree, but otherwise you're talking about engraving logos, engraving characters and stuff like that. Absolutely, it looks great. We oftentimes what we do with the system when we're engraving is we usually set it to a lower resolution, a lower DPI on purpose, and it's really just for to kind of get more speed out of it versus because it does take a little while. That has an effect on quality, but you can run it at a higher resolution to get that quality a little bit higher if that's what you're looking for. So it like I said, it depends, but for the most part, yes.
Right. But Don, if I may add to that, like if you're engraving a large piece, like let's say a 4-foot by 8-foot material, it's not intended to be viewed a few feet away. Like usually it would go like a few meters away, right? So that's why the resolution is not a huge factor.
Exactly.
It's enough quality actually to for wow factor. Let's say a hotel entrance. I've seen people engrave on a 2000 actually a 4-foot 4x8 granite piece. It's actually a picture of downtown Manhattan. It came out like beautiful actually.
Awesome. Okay. So those would be the applications where you're not necessarily worried about turnaround time. You're not trying to do 80 granite pieces a day. You're looking to do something that is really special and unique and really big, so suits that machine kind of thing.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and then the cost of the cost of the product that you're producing justifies the time that it takes for the system to produce it.
Absolutely. Well, and that was a point you made to me when I was down there the other week, Ron, which was there's nothing against necessarily using this machine in concept for engraving. It's just, like I said, the value of the piece that you're producing has to be equivalent to the time that you take. And I mean, that goes across all of our machines, right? That's a core part of the ROI. It's one of the things that really sets Trotec apart, I think, is we have some of the, the fastest quality to engraving time ratios that you can get. But really, at the end of the day, it's about where you're going to be best served with that return on investment for your special product.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
There's we know that there's a customer in Europe that has one of these that all they do on it is engrave, but they do massive like conference tables and stuff. They sell for tens of thousands of euros and so forth. So they can very easily justify the time it takes to engrave that piece. And I'm not saying every application is like that, but it's very easy to justify that length of time. The laser is more than capable of running constantly to do something like that. But it's just, is the product that you're producing worth, does it sell for enough to justify the time that it takes to engrave it? Cutting is a lot easier. It cuts very fast.
It does cut very fast, I will say. Having had the occasion to sit there and kind of just be a nerd about it a little bit, I will say I have just sat by the 2000 and watched it cut, and it's pretty cool. So I think I would be remiss if I didn't mention this. We talk a lot on our webinars about Ruby. Do we want to talk a little bit about Ron? So this machine, at least for the foreseeable future, I know it is on the horizon, but we should specify that this machine is still a job control machine. Is that fair?
That is correct. That is correct. And there's a reason for that as well. And it actually comes down to something we mentioned earlier, which is tandem mode. Ruby has as I've heard, as I understand it, there's been, they want to make sure that when Ruby switches over for these systems, that tandem mode is still a part of that, because a very large group of our customers actively use that functionality. And so if Ruby doesn't support it, then they're not going to be interested in going to Ruby. Job control is very, very, very well acclimated to running an industrial style system such as this, very large, high production system. So it actually works really well with that system, and it does everything that the system was designed to do. In the future, the intention is to get Ruby on these As I understand it, that's coming sooner than later. It's always the fun thing is we're just as much in the dark waiting for like the good word. Yes, it's ready.
Yeah, we're excited too. I promise.
So,
yeah, Nelly even mentions in the chat there, Ruby, please trust me. We're right there with you. We're excited too. But I do think it's one thing that, as Mel and Ron have both kind of stressed over the course of the webinar, and I'd like to circle back around too, is that, the training that comes with these machines, we understand that they can be a little intimidating, obviously, but the training that comes with the machine, like we are really there, as Mel said, to be your partner in this, to make sure that you are well set up. And I think, as Ron really well explained, that we are not just going to sort of, push you to the deep end and like, go get them, champ. Like, we're going to make sure that you're up and running before we walk away, even if you're not located in Hawaii, I promise. So it's one of these things where we want to make sure that you feel comfortable before we leave. And so whether it's Ruby or Job Control, maybe Ruby might be a little bit more user-friendly because you've gotten to see some of our recent webinars or things like this, but don't be intimidated by Job Control. Even if you hear Job Control is great. It's fantastic. It took a while, at least in my personal experience, for me to be converted into a Ruby head. I am very much now, I will say, but in fairness, Job Control is a really great, really friendly software. So don't let that scare you away from the machines. I will say, Lars mentions too that Ruby is potentially available since 2.5, just not with the tandem mode. Exactly.
Well, not on the 500. It is
on the 500 specifically. Okay.
1500 and up.
Thank you. Okay. So the 1500 also excluded.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. Perfect.
Well, that's what I've heard. It's been a while since I've seen a 1500. So.
Yes, me too, actually. Come to mention it.
Yeah.
So can I ask a bit of we're getting close to the top of the hour here. Again, a huge thank you to everybody who's joined us in chat for all the great questions. Yeah. One of the kind of particulars about the 2000, and I did want to ask you, if you're going to be running Job Control, it's very clear that you're going to need to have a PC hooked up to this machine. But as you can see over Ron's left shoulder there is kind of a tower, a special sort of command post that comes with the 2000 specifically. Does that come with a PC integrated, or is the user still bringing their own PC to hook up to the machine?
It does come with a PC. It'll run Job Control. It'll run a basic graphics program. I'm not going to tell you that we're not giving you it's not a $2,000 high-end gaming PC, but it'll does the job. It does okay. So it comes with that. We have had a few customers that they got it and they said, "Hey, thanks. I really want to put this super powerful computer on there." Okay, no problem.
Yep.
Absolutely go ahead. But it does come with a computer, so you don't need to necessarily worry about having to have a computer if that's the case.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I thought that was kind of, is that unique to the 2000, or does the 3000 have the same? Okay, cool.
Yeah, 3000. Yeah, 3000 has both. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off like that, but yeah, 3000 also has the same setup and so forth. The 500, 1500, on the other hand, those different. You would have to supply your own computer. Yeah.
What I like about that too is just one more reason not to be afraid of Job Control, because you're not having to supply your own PC. It's the PC comes right packed in with the machine straight away, and you're kind of again, as we stressed before, the training in tandem, you're kind of good to go right from day one.
Yep.
Is there anything? So again, we've got about 5 minutes here, guys. I want to circle back around. I'll go over to you first, Ron. Maybe I'll come to you, Mel, next. Was there anything we didn't get to talk about? All holds barred, no holds barred. Pardon me, all holds barred. That we didn't get the chance to sort of touch on yet, but you think is really special. Any particular topic about the 2000 and large formats? Anything you like about them in particular you want to throw out there? Anything we haven't gotten to touch on yet?
I get real quick. I'll just cover a couple of talking points that I had written down here. One is just the maintenance on it. Very, very low maintenance system. With the very powerful exhaust, the disc right there, you're not going to get a bunch of dust and debris from the system. One of the really cool things about how the exhaust setup is on the system is you're cutting acrylic, you don't smell it. It's all going pulled out through the exhaust. It very, very clean, but that also helps in the maintenance of the system. All the optics are air flushed. There's heat sinks on all the mirrors to help keep them cool, so you can run this thing all day long without worrying about something going wrong. beam, the chassis is so rigid. It's designed from the ground up to be a laser. So it's not a router table that somebody put a laser on. And unfortunately, you do see that a lot in this particular market. This is ground up to be a laser. So you have a very, very rigid structure using flying optics for the mirrors like our smaller systems use. So that allows it to go very fast, but it also helps keep it very clean. And because it's so rigid, the beam alignment stays rock solid. So technician comes out to check the beam alignment. Very rarely do they ever have to adjust much at all. Yeah, I mean, there's only a couple of wear items you need to consider having around: a disc, maybe an extra lens just in case. Otherwise, for the most part, you're not really replacing a lot on the system. It just runs and it runs and it runs and it runs. So there's that there. And yeah, I think that's got me covered in a brief statement.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you. That's an important point. Yeah, I'm really glad we circled back to.
Yeah.
Mel, how about yourself? Same question.
Yeah, just a couple of things, right? So just want to let everyone know, like, there's a question about the ventilation system. There's actually two types of vent systems that we provide. One is a filtered solution, and the other one is just basically exhausted outside. So we provide both of those actually. And again, it goes down with a visit. We tell you your few different options that you can go about doing this. And also, lastly, is I just want to let everyone know too that we have multiple demo sites. We can provide dedicated demonstrations to customers that are interested. All you need to do is really get a hold of us, and then we'll get one of our sales rep scheduled a day and time. If there's one in your location, we can usually fly you out to either like the one in Michigan or one in Ontario. There's different places that we can. And so at least that demonstration is dedicated. You can ask as many questions as you want. You can send us your materials, all your questions prior to the demo. So so if you want, you can book, you can message us. There's a lot of different ways you can get a hold of us.
Please do.
Yeah.
One last place too you can come to see a cool demo of the machine in person is going to be Printing United. October 18th, 19th, 20th in Atlanta, Georgia. Definitely don't miss out. Again, a very, very, very cool trade show. If you are going to be able to see us there, I hope you'll stop in and say hello to these two gentlemen. Let them know that you watched the webinar. Let them know, likes, dislikes, all that sort of stuff. Bring them a bottle of water because they'll be working hard on the show floor, rushing around. Quick question. This I don't know, so I'll throw over to you, Ron. Do you know if there are any of these machines local to Texas?
So in Texas, currently, we do not have one of these systems set up as a demo. Now, the facility actually is set up to have one as a demo, and we have had one previously. But we've actually went through our demo systems, and we sold that one out of there. We have not yet replaced one in that showroom. So hopefully in the coming months, we will have another one there.
Very cool.
Yep.
So all I can suggest then, I guess, is just to reach out to your local Trotec and let them know that you're excited, and they'll have you in, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Again, too, this is something where, as Mel says, we are, open to potentially, if you're excited to see the machine and you're serious about looking at it, to flying you out to see the machine in person, or it's also something we can demo to some degree, even virtually, as your first, kind of touch point, be able to show you the machine virtually, especially as you guys were saying, if they're able to send us material or a file in advance that we can test, make it kind of more of a one-to-one of whatever you're interested in doing. It's definitely something as a sales rep, but I'm not going to speak for all of my colleagues, but at least for myself, obviously we're very open to doing, and it's a lot of fun for us. So, gentlemen, I think that will just about do it for today. Once again, a huge thank you to everybody in chat, and a huge thank you to both Mel and to Ron for joining us today. This has been a ton of fun, and I really appreciate it, guys. If you're watching this down the line on YouTube, thank you for making it this far. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Definitely, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to post them in the description underneath the video. We do try and get around to answering those as best we can, as quickly as we can. And obviously, when you have really talented, smart guys like Ron and Mel, it's pretty easy to do. I will say, again, I can't stress enough, if you're in the local market and you're interested in seeing one of these machines for yourself, don't be intimidated by the size. Don't be intimidated. Don't be put off by any of these sorts of things. Not only are the local Trotec staff very excited to see you and to show it to you, but we can do a demo that's really tailored to you. So as Mel suggested, send us your material ahead of time. Send us your files if there's something in particular you want to see. Come and see us at Printing United in Atlanta. But just make sure if this is a machine you're excited about, come out and see it, because as Ron was saying, in Texas, they do tend to kind of disappear on us, unfortunately, a little bit here and there. And so if you're excited to come see one, we really, really encourage it, especially, and not to, again, I know I've said this too much, but at Printing United, there are going to be specials also at the booth. So if you come to Print United and you make a purchase at Print United, you're going to save, I'm not trying to, but it's a good opportunity. It's a good opportunity. It's a great chance to get down and see us in person. So also a huge thank you, obviously, to Corey and Gabe and everybody on the production end in the back. A huge thank you to everybody who made this possible, and we look forward to seeing you guys. Keep an eye on your emails. We'll be doing a lot more of these webinars coming up in the future, but for the time being, I guess we will say take care. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, Print United.
Yeah. Print United.
Yeah.